Hello, and thanks for tuning in today. We are going to be talking all about how to win at the buyer's journey. So definitely stick around because whether you sell products or you have a service-based business, it is imperative to not only know what your buyer's journey is, but also know how you can optimize and tighten up your specific buyer's journey process. So let's dive in. And if you find value in this information, I would love it if you give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe to the channel. That would be fantastic. So there are three key steps in a general buyer's journey. The very first one is awareness. Like anything, when we're first starting to discover that there's some discomfort or we can up level, we start to become very mindful and have an awareness, an opening of our mind. And when that occurs, the very first thing that I know that I do, and I think many people do, is go to Google. And we're in this information gathering stage. It is really the first educational platform where we're just starting to poke around. We may be looking at a LinkedIn article. We may be, seeing what comes up in that Google search or listening to the scuttlebutt in a Facebook forum. So we're really just in this information gathering stage. This is kind of a cool stage because first off, the net is cast wide because we're still kind of sorting and sifting and putting context to our problem. The reason why I find this stage cool when I'm in it is because many times I find that somebody has given context to what I'm struggling with. So it's like, oh yeah, boy, they said it so eloquently. That's exactly the thing that I'm struggling on. I couldn't put words to it. So we start to kind of have these puzzle pieces drop in and give name to our problems or issues in this stage. So in this awareness stage, as a solopreneur, how can you win in this specific stage? So you want to be thinking about things that you can do that, one, people clearly know who you are, who you help, and how you help. You want to make sure that your niche is narrowed. So we're not trying to have a general message that helps every man, woman, and child, but that we're really specific and specialized in exactly who we help and how we help them. So the clearer that we are, the more chances that our content is going to come up during this initial Googling stage that our prospective client is doing on the other side. So definitely be thinking about that. The other thing that I'm really passionate about is staying very much in specific messaging pillars. So there is some security and safety when you have a little bit of structure, even though in the beginning, if you're a freedom lover, and I'm a freedom lover, it may feel a little bit restrictive to just only focus and narrow down on a few topics. However, when you are very clear and have strong messaging pillars, this becomes an opportunity for you to carve a lane. Again, it goes right in line with narrowing your niche and becoming known as a specialist. This will help ensure that you're winning in this awareness stage of the buyer's journey, so you are more apt to come up in organic inbound searches. So definitely keep that in mind. The second stage in a general buyer's awareness is the consideration stage. So they've already kind of done their initial searching. They've kind of, randomly had their net wide. They're getting a little bit more specific now in this consideration stage. They're looking at pros and cons. And I don't know if you do this, but like, even if I'm buying a frying pan, right? This same journey, this step by step by step, it can apply to something as mundane as a household item, all the way up to high-end coaching packages. It is really the same psychology and the same process. So in this consideration stage, step 2, they're going to be looking for more solution-specific articles. They may be looking for a free webinar. They may be actually even reaching out to friends and talking to them about their experiences or looking for a referral. They're really trying to whittle down and make their longer list of options get a little bit more tailored to their desires. At this point, though, they're starting to build more clarity of their problem, their issue. Is it a skill problem? Is it a mindset issue? Like, they're really starting to understand why they haven't gotten their desired result yet and what they would need to fill in the gap. So ways that you can win in this category is to have offerings that have something like a free webinar or a very low barrier to entry masterclass. Like $37 is that popular price point where you can really deliver a 60 or 90-minute masterclass and have people understand who you are and your value and kind of feel out your energy and get to know you and your services. See if it's really a match for them. The other thing is to really make sure that your website is speaking specifically to your ideal client avatar. So for short, a lot of people in the industry call it ICA, and that really just stands for Ideal Client Avatar. So that's very, very key in this buyer's journey in every stage, but especially in this consideration stage, you really want to understand who your potential client is. What are they struggling with? What keeps them up at night? What are their pain points? And if they could wave a magic wand, what are they hoping for? Who do they want to be? What are their deep desires? And so knowing those two pieces, that's very key in this formula. And optimizing this consideration stage is allowing your website to do the heavy lifting for you and making sure that your copy is written in a way that the visitor can self-identify. They start to be able to build a little bit of trust that you understand where they are and what they're looking for. We need to be able to have our copy allow them to self-identify. So that's one way that you can win in that consideration stage. The last stage, and this is our action stage, this is the decision-making process stage. They've already gone through their education and awareness. They've already gone through consideration, done their pros and cons. They've really put their work in, and they've really done their homework. So at this point in the decision-making stage, they're really now looking for a specific solution for them. And in fact, Serious Decisions is a research company, and they did a study and they said that 70% of people in the buyer's journey have actually already made their decision before they've ever reached out to sales or a sales team. So that's really, really interesting, especially for those solopreneurs that offer discovery calls or strategy sessions. When you think about that statistic, and I found that to be very true in my own case, that 70%, 2/3 of the decision is already made before they're actually committing to get on a call with you. So what are those other elements that are actually going to close the deal or cinch those connections? It's really about your energy, your confidence. Do they feel that you're a good listener? I know that those are some of the things that I think about in that stage. Am I confident? Not only are you confident, and I'm drawn to that, but am I confident that you have a specific solution that's going to help me? And so it's really important to have relevant and timely content in this category for when you're preparing how to win in this decision-making process. There's a couple of different things that you can do. You can have really compelling testimonials that talk about results. So we're not looking for fluffy testimonials of Jane's a really sweet person. We're really looking for Jane helped me 10x my email list, or Jane helped me go from X to Y. So people are going to be really combing through your website and looking at testimonials, sifting through the fluff and really looking at results and seeing if they can self-identify. So having really awesome testimonials on your website is a great way. Having case studies is awesome if that's applicable to your industry. So you helped client X do Y in Z amount of time. Those kind of statistics are really, really compelling, and they have a very strong impact. The other area you can think about in your website to really tighten up this decision-making process, and I think it's underused, is the FAQ sections. Because you can still be selling in the FAQ section and validating and instilling confidence and getting ahead of objections in the form of frequently asked questions. So when you're looking at tightening up this decision-making process, make it really clear for them that you understand where they are and where they want to go and how your product and service can be the bridge to get them there. I love having an opportunity to connect with people. I'm always a big advocate of having discovery calls or strategy sessions, especially if you are in a service-based business or you're looking for longer term clients, not just one-offs, but people that are going to be with you for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So really make that process super easy and also let them understand what happens on a discovery call or strategy session. So you take out any worry or any concern that there may be. That's another great way to optimize this decision-making process. You want to have that prospective buyer make this, well, it's know, like, and trust factors, right? The three basics in any marketing. You want to give them an opportunity to step closer to your world. I want to make a point here that you can encounter a prospective client at any one of these stages: awareness, consideration, or decision. So you don't really necessarily know when they're going to enter into your funnel, or, like one of my coaches used to say, circle your orbit. And it may be fast, but I also want to just say, be patient if it's slow, because many times people will be circling your orbit and dipping their toe in maybe one of your little master classes or webinars, or buying an ebook or checking other things out before they actually commit, especially if it's a large investment, or you're looking not only an investment of time, but money. You could be looking at an investment of money. Some masterminds are 4 months long. I don't know about you, but if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to be all in. And if I'm going to be all in, I have to carve out time in my busy calendar to even show up to that mastermind. So it's not always a financial investment that you want to be aware of and mindful and speak to. It's that time commitment too, that non-renewable resource that we're all looking to get more of. So some things to consider along these processes, and be patient, because it may take a year or two. And I know that may sound like a lot if you're just starting out, but that is the beauty of perseverance, of being an entrepreneur, is the slow, the steady, the consistent. That's how you truly build a foundation of those know, like, and trust factors. I have some people that will write me that are telling me, I've been watching you for 2-3 years. You're on my vision board to work with, which is awesome. It's really amazing to hear. So I just want you to not get disheartened if things aren't happening as fast as you want them to happen, because you may have a lot of eyes on your valuable work. Keep using your voice, keep spreading the message, and just know that you are making a difference, spreading these marketing seeds and being very aware of this journey of awareness, consideration, and decision. And I wanted to give you just an example of one of the last coaches that I worked with and how this process played out, because we really all go through this. Like I said, whether we're buying a new eyeliner or we're buying a new car, these steps are something that just happen naturally and unfold. So I was in a business mastermind, and he had one of his success stories of somebody that had coached with him. He called her in as a guest expert for the mastermind attendees, and she shared a little, presentation, which was cool. It, wasn't awesome. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to work with her. I was just like, oh, that's cool. And I didn't really think much about it. But interestingly enough, one of the other participants in the mastermind really gravitated to that presentation, and she ended up hiring her as her next coach when she graduated from the mastermind program. And so I just kind of hung back and I watched it, because we were buddies and we had a couple of virtual coffee chats together, and I watched her growth online. And she literally went from an insecure, scared rabbit looking for external validation. And that may sound judgy, right? We're all judging to some extent, so it kind of is judgy. But from my perspective, that's what I saw. And the transformation that happened is what's remarkable, because over a few months of working with this new coach, she became this fierce, confident badass that was growing her Facebook group by leaps and bounds. She grew it to like 500 or 800 members, really dedicated, active members in a very short period of time, like 4 or 6 months. And she started coming up on my radar, and I was on her email list, and I started really noticing the strength in her emails. And I started noticing that her content was becoming a little bit more polarized. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is interesting. This has a hook. And so what happened was I dug a little deeper and I was like, oh, it's because she started coaching with this woman. And then this woman started getting on my radar because it was like I was curious at what someone who had graduated and was the success symbol of this mastermind that I was in, what they were accomplishing. So here's part of the buyer's journey. She was in my awareness, right? I then started circling her orbit and I started looking at her Facebook lives. I subscribed to her podcast. I started listening to her values. I started realizing, wow, we have a lot in common. There's a big kind of like bigots like thing that's happening here because she was very into positive psychology and mindset and being true to your values. And I was like, ooh, this is ringing really, really true. And so I just started kind of watching and listening to all of those things. And then for me, what's very important is that I know that there are a couple steps ahead of me. So I know that there's two schools of thought on this and I won't go on a tangent, but for me, it's important to know that they have been where I want to go and they've hit the numbers that I want to hit. And I knew from what she was sharing on the podcast that she had increased her income and hit numbers that I was looking to hit. She became a best-selling author, which is something that's on my wish list. And so I was like, okay, cool. She is definitely, ahead on this entrepreneurial journey. So then, and only then, did I book a strategy session with her. And it's so interesting because with that stat, it very much rang true for me because, yeah, I actually knew, unless the call went really wrong, that I was going to be hiring her because I had already done my research. I had already kind of like tested the waters. I checked out her brand. I just made sure that we were going to be a good fit. And so by the time I got to that strategy session, it was truly about, can she handle the hard questions, right? Does she have what it takes to play ball with me? Because I'm kind of a strong Taurus. So it was like, is this going to be a nice working relationship? And what's the energy? What's the vibe like? Do I feel better and more expanded and uplifted being around her in that time? And the answer was yes. And I ended up hiring her for thousands of dollars. And so my point in sharing that story is there is this step-by-step process that we go through as a buyer and that your buyer is going to go through. So I want you to do two things. Here's your homework, if you're game. The first thing is to think about your ideal client avatar. Who are they? What are they like? What are they hoping to get? Right? Just get really granular. And there's tons of information out there. If it's something that you want me to do a dedicated episode on, if that's new terminology, just let me know. I'm happy to do a dedicated episode on understanding your ideal client avatar because that's really important. And then start making a little spreadsheet. I literally just kind of wrote this out like this. And it's just like literally step one, awareness. And then go through and see if you are first aware what they're aware about, like what is the problem? What's the language they're going to use? What's the content that I want to be producing so I end up in some of those search engines? The consideration stage, again, how can I have content that's going to match that stage, get more specific, be strong in my messaging pillars? And the decision stage, how can I make sure to show that I can do what I say that I'm going to do? And how can I have social proof that other people can validate that what I say is true? So really just making this spreadsheet, getting super clear. And if you have a gap, no worries, because now you know where to fill in. That's why we're doing this. And maybe you've never even thought about creating a buyer's journey. And that's okay too, because you can literally break it down super simply, step 1, step 2, step 3. And even if you focus on rocking one thing in each of those steps, you've just mapped out your buyer's journey. A way that you can personalize this and even make it easier to kind of get a feel and a context for is do what I just did and think of an example of the last person or maybe a couple of people that you've hired. And what was your buyer's journey? Because we intimately know when we make decisions and why we've made those decisions. And what did it take for you to get confident to make that decision? Was it a really well put together website that was on brand and easy to navigate? Was it the pictures or the headshots of the person that you just felt like, wow, they look really sweet, or they look really this, or they look really that, or they're barefoot on a beach and I want freedom so much and they have that? Like, whatever. Don't discredit anything. All those little things make a huge difference in the buyer's journey and the decision-making process, because we're emotional beings making emotional decisions based on the desires that we want. So I want you to think about that. It's really not all about polished perfection. It's about connection and emotion and really uncovering the desire, because that's what we make decisions based on, are our desires and our hopes and the potential and possibility that it's going to work for us as well. So think about the last time that you hired somebody and what you went through. What were the first things you started Googling? After you started Googling, how did you narrow it down? Are you a pros and cons list girl like me? Or are you better talking it out with your biz bestie or your partner, and really going back and forth and maybe even thinking about like the what ifs, like what works for you? And then what ultimately drove you to the decision to enroll now or to sign up for a package program, coaching session, whatever. And when you make these two maps side by side, they'll help to inform one another when you put the filter over that of your ideal client avatar. And then, of course, we're going to test and measure these things. You can always do interviews to prospective clients or polls on social media to get even more voice of client data, right? Real life people saying their pain and their problems in their own voice, in their own way. So then you can make content that answers those problems. So I hope that this helps. You can really break it down as simple as awareness, consideration, and decision, and think about your own personal experience and then overlay your own buyer's journey. This is going to make a tremendous difference in attracting people into your world. It's going to really show that you care about the client in every single stage that they're in. And then when you start making content, whether it's a long form blog post, whether it's a social media post, whether it's an Instagram story, you can actually be thinking, at what stage am I creating this content for? How is this going to serve my prospective buyer where she is right now? How can I make this content, this post, this story relevant and timely for exactly what she's looking for in the moment? That's why you want to do a variety of these things. We don't just want to be focused in the decision-making lane, because that often will come off as salesy if you're only staying in that lane and only focusing on why my product is the best and why my service is this and that. You need a balanced kind of trifecta. So if you look at this like a pie, there are 3 slices, and you want to be contributing all the goodies in equal distribution in this pie, so it makes a really excellent, tight, and optimized presentation. How does that sound? I hope this was helpful. Let me know some aha moments and your action steps in the comments. Remember to subscribe, because I share new videos every single week. And thank you so much for being here. Until next time, my friends, breathe joy.